You don't need to be perfect. You need to move. How many times have you told yourself, "I'll start tomorrow," or "Once I feel more ready, I'll do it"? The truth is, waiting for perfect is exactly what's holding you back. This isn't just a mindset problem. It's a pattern. You keep planning, fixing, preparing, but you're not moving. And deep down, you know it. This video is about breaking that pattern for good. It's about building the courage to make progress, even if it's slow, even if it's messy. We're not here to chase perfect. We're here to do the real work, to stay consistent, finish things, and stop giving up on ourselves when things get uncomfortable. If you've ever felt stuck, distracted, burned out, or like you're falling behind, stay here. This is exactly the shift you've been needing. Let's make progress your new standard, not perfection. Chapter 1. Take action before you feel fully ready. When you're chasing something meaningful, something real, you will rarely feel fully ready. That's the truth most people don't want to admit. The world teaches us to wait. Wait until you're sure. Wait until it's perfect. Wait until you have more money or more skills or more clarity. But here's the thing. Most of that waiting is fear in disguise. We're not waiting for readiness. We're avoiding discomfort. And yet growth begins the moment we act without certainty. There's power in doing something before you think you're ready because it wakes something up inside of you. It pulls you into the moment. It forces you to adapt, to learn, to stretch. It shows you that you didn't need to be perfect. You just needed to be present. When you take action before you're ready, you give yourself permission to grow in public, to improve through experience, not just theory. You see, readiness is not a finish line. It's not a point you reach where suddenly everything clicks. Readiness is built through repetition. It's built through showing up. And the only way to become confident is to do the thing that scares you again and again until it becomes familiar. Nobody ever got strong by reading about lifting weights. You get strong by picking something up. People often ask, "But what if I fail?" And I ask, what if you don't even try? Because that's the real failure. Staying still while life moves forward. You will never learn what's possible by standing on the sidelines. The only way to know what you're capable of is by starting. And not just starting. Starting while you're unsure, while you're afraid, while you're shaking a little. That's how growth works. The moment you take action, real action, your life starts to move. It doesn't matter how small it is. One step creates motion. One step breaks the pattern. One step leads to another. And before you know it, you're in the game. You're not just thinking about changing, you're changing. Most people don't struggle with motivation. They struggle with permission. They wait for someone or something to give them the green light. But you are the only one who can give that to yourself. And if you keep waiting for some magical feeling of readiness, you'll be waiting forever. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you said sooner or later or when the timing is right? And where has that gotten you? Has it moved you forward? Or has it kept you stuck in the same place, living in your head instead of your life? Action is the antidote to anxiety. Movement quiets fear. When you take a step, your focus shifts from what if to what's next. And that's how momentum is born. Not from thinking, not from planning, not from perfect timing, but from doing. Action leads to clarity. It's only by stepping into the process that you begin to see what needs adjusting, what needs improving, and what's already working. And no, it won't be perfect. It won't feel smooth. You might stumble. You might feel awkward. But that's part of it. That's not a sign to stop. That's a sign you're moving. And that movement is where the magic is. If you wait until everything feels certain, you'll never take the leap. If you wait until you know every answer, you'll never raise your hand. If you wait until you don't feel scared, you'll never find your strength. Real progress comes from making peace with uncertainty and taking action anyway. You'll look back later and see how far you've come. But you can't get there without that first uncomfortable move. You can't gain experience without stepping into the arena. You can't build resilience without facing resistance. And you can't grow if you don't start. So don't overthink it. Don't wait for a perfect plan. Don't get stuck preparing for a life you're not even living. Do the thing. Start the project. Send the message. Post the idea. Join the class. Apply for the opportunity. Make the call. Take the leap. Because you won't know what's possible until you begin. And yes, people might judge. You might mess up. You might feel embarrassed. That's okay. That's human. But you'll also gain something most people never do. Self-respect. You'll earn your own trust. You'll prove to yourself that you don't need perfect conditions to create a better future. You just need action. You won't become confident by waiting for it. You become confident by doing hard things, by showing up when it's inconvenient, by choosing courage over comfort. And the sooner you start, the sooner you learn. The sooner you fail, the sooner you adjust, the sooner you take the step, the sooner you grow. Everyone starts at zero. Everyone starts unsure. Everyone starts with questions. But only a few are willing to start at all. And those few, they go on to create something meaningful. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not missing anything that can't be built along the way. What matters is what you choose now, and now is always available. Progress lives in motion. It lives in the doing. It lives in the moments when you push past your hesitation and take the next best step. So if you've been waiting, stop. If you've been doubting, act anyway. If you've been holding back, lean in. Your life isn't on hold. It's waiting for you to participate. It's waiting for your decision. It's waiting for your action. Because the world doesn't respond to your thoughts. It responds to your movement. And the first move, it's yours. Chapter 2. Let progress matter more than being right. Most people are more focused on being right than they are on growing. They want to win the argument. They want to prove they know more. They want to make sure they never look wrong in front of anyone. But what they don't see is that this obsession with being right is exactly what keeps them stuck. Because if you're always trying to defend what you already know, you leave no room to learn anything new. There's something freeing about choosing progress over being right. It means you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to pretend to be perfect. You don't have to protect your pride at the cost of your growth. You can actually admit when something isn't working and change it. You can listen when someone gives feedback instead of taking it as an attack. You can open your mind to better ways of thinking, of acting, of becoming. The person who grows the most is not the one who always gets it right. It's the one who stays open. It's the one who asks questions. It's the one who learns from mistakes and actually applies what they've learned. Being right might feel good for a moment, but progress feels good for a lifetime. If you really care about becoming better, then being wrong sometimes is a gift. It shows you where you need to improve. It points you to what you missed. It humbles you in the best way possible, not to break your confidence, but to build your character. The ability to say, "I was wrong," is a sign of strength. It means you care more about the truth than your ego. Think about it. When was the last time being right changed your life? Now think about the last time you learned something that helped you grow. The difference is huge. One is about status. The other is about transformation. You don't get better by defending old ideas. You get better by updating them. And sometimes that means saying, "The way I used to think doesn't serve me anymore." That's not weakness. That's awareness. That's growth. We live in a world where people are more interested in improving than improving. But the truth is, people who constantly try to look right are usually the ones most afraid of change. They build walls around what they know because they think it protects them, but it actually traps them. They stop evolving and they don't even realize it. If you can make peace with not always being right, you gain something much more powerful, the ability to adapt. And in a world that's always shifting, being adaptable is one of the most important skills you can have. It means you're not stuck. It means you're not fragile. It means you can respond to reality instead of clinging to the past. Progress asks you to be honest, not just with others, but with yourself. It asks you to admit when your habits aren't helping. It asks you to let go of the identity that says, "I already know." It challenges you to prioritize becoming better over being praised. You don't grow by winning arguments. You grow by listening, reflecting, and taking action on what you discover. And sometimes what you discover is uncomfortable. You might realize you've been wasting time. You might see that your approach needs work. You might feel exposed, but in that discomfort is the door to your next level. So many people stay in the same place because they'd rather protect their pride than face the process. But the process is where all the change lives. The process is where you build something real. The process is where you stop pretending and start becoming. And here's something important to understand. You don't lose anything by being wrong. You only lose when you refuse to grow from it. Every single person who's great at what they do has been wrong hundreds of times. They've failed, misjudged, misunderstood, and still moved forward. That's why they're great, because they didn't let being wrong stop them. They used it to fuel them. When you're focused on progress, you're not worried about your image. You're focused on impact. You're focused on learning. You're focused on movement. That's the mindset that creates results. That's the mindset that keeps you moving even when you make a mistake. Let's make this practical. Ask yourself right now, where in your life are you holding back because you don't want to be wrong? Where are you pretending to know when you really need help? Where are you stuck defending a strategy that isn't working anymore? Now ask yourself this: what would shift if you let go of being right and focused fully on moving forward? Would you finally accept feedback without taking it personally? Would you try a new path even if you're unsure it will work? Would you admit that something you've been doing for years no longer makes sense? Would you reach out for advice instead of pretending to have it together? These are hard questions, but they're the right ones because they lead you back to growth. The truth is, progress is messy. It's uncomfortable. It requires you to unlearn, to challenge your own thoughts, to put yourself in positions where you might not be the smartest person in the room. And that's exactly why it works. It keeps you humble. It keeps you moving. It keeps you honest. If you let go of needing to always be right, you gain the freedom to learn from every experience. You start seeing mistakes as teachers. You start valuing feedback instead of fearing it. You start choosing your future over your pride. Progress is for the brave. It's for the ones willing to say, "I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to find them." It's for the ones who care more about evolving than impressing. It's for the ones who are not trying to win today. They're trying to grow for life. You don't need to be the smartest. You need to be the most willing. Willing to adapt. Willing to hear the hard truth. Willing to drop what isn't working. Willing to become someone who keeps improving no matter how far they've come. Because in the end, being right will not build your future. Progress will. And every time you choose progress over being right, you get stronger. You gain clarity. You get closer to the life you're capable of living. You step out of your ego and into your growth. And that choice over and over again is what separates those who stay stuck from those who break through. Chapter 3. Start where you are, not where you wish. You don't need to be somewhere else to begin. You don't need a bigger audience, a better situation, a cleaner past, or a perfect mindset. You don't need to wait until everything looks the way you imagined it. The truth is, you start from where you are, not from where you wish you were. That one idea can change everything if you let it. Too many people spend years preparing for the future they think they need before they allow themselves to take the first step. They create this ideal version of themselves, smarter, calmer, more disciplined, more experienced, and then they wait until they become that person to begin. But life doesn't work that way. That version of you doesn't magically appear. You build them by starting right now with the tools, knowledge, and strength you already have. Starting where you are is a decision. It's not about lowering the bar. It's about removing the fantasy and facing what's real. You don't need to pretend to be ahead. You don't need to fake it. You just need to begin with what's already in your hands. That's where real progress starts. In the now, in the honest moment, in the willingness to work with what's available. Some people never start because they compare their beginning to someone else's middle. They scroll through stories, look at pictures, hear success talks, and they convince themselves that they're too far behind. But you're not behind. You're at the beginning of your own path. And there's no shame in being at the start of something real. The mistake is believing that wishing, comparing, and hoping will move you forward. They won't. Only action will. It's easy to say, once I fix my mindset, then I'll start. Or, once I feel motivated, I'll commit. But that mindset keeps you trapped in a loop. You wait for motivation, but motivation waits for action. You wait for clarity, but clarity waits for movement. You wait for the perfect moment, but that moment is waiting for you to create it. There's something powerful about accepting your current position. Not in a way that says, I'll stay here, but in a way that says, this is my starting point, and I'm ready to move. It's not where you are that defines you. It's what you do with where you are. You don't need a full plan to move forward. You don't need every detail sorted out. You need to stop hiding behind the idea of later. You need to stop fantasizing about some other version of you that has no fears, no doubts, no struggles. That person doesn't exist. What exists is the decision you make today to stop wishing and start doing. You want to write a book, start with one messy page. You want to lose weight, start with one walk. You want to speak better, start with one conversation. You want to grow your business, start with one customer. You want to rebuild your life, start with one habit. It doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to be impressive, but it needs to be honest. It needs to come from who you are right now, not who you hope to be later. Some people will avoid starting because they think they need more confidence first. But confidence comes from doing the thing, not waiting for the feeling. You become confident by showing up, not by thinking about showing up. You build belief in yourself by taking action and seeing that you're capable, even when it's hard, even when it's not perfect, even when it's awkward. You can spend years waiting for the right feeling, the right timing, the right version of your life, or you can make progress now. Progress isn't about speed, it's about direction, and the direction only changes when you start taking steps. Your current situation isn't your limitation, it's your location. And your location can change, but it won't change by itself. It won't change by waiting for someone to save you. It won't change by blaming what's missing. It will only change when you look around at what you do have. Your energy, your breath, your mind, your time, and use it. Even if it's not perfect, even if it's not much, even if it's small, start anywhere. Because when you do, you start building a new pattern. One that's not based on who you think you should be, but on who you're actually becoming. Every step you take is proof that progress is possible. Every bit of effort you make becomes momentum. And momentum doesn't wait for perfection. It waits for movement. You can't get to the next level by skipping this one. You can't jump ahead to the finish line without running the race. You can't pretend your way into change. The only way to move is to begin from here, this moment, this version of you, this reality. And there's nothing weak about that. In fact, it takes strength to say, this is where I'm starting, and I'm not ashamed of it. That kind of honesty builds power. It removes the pressure to be someone else. It lets you take ownership of your journey. You're not starting from nothing. You're starting from experience. You've survived things. You've learned things. You've endured pain. You've gained wisdom. Use that. Use the version of you that exists now to step forward. That version is enough to start. If you wait until everything feels perfect, you'll never move. But if you begin where you are, you'll learn what works. You'll grow stronger. You'll gain direction. And you'll look back one day and realize that the most important decision you made was not to wait until you had it all together. It was deciding that you were allowed to start with what you had. Progress doesn't require perfection. It requires permission, not from the world, from you. So give yourself that permission. You don't need to wish you were somewhere else. You don't need to imagine a better version of you. You just need to begin right here, right now, just as you. Chapter 4. Choose growth. When your brain wants perfect, there's a moment we all face. The moment when your mind tells you something has to be perfect before it's good enough to start. You feel a pull inside you to get everything just right. Every detail, every word, every step. And until then, you hesitate. You wait, you delay. That's the trap. It feels responsible. It feels wise, but it's not progress. It's paralysis. You have a choice in that moment to follow the voice that says, make it flawless. Or the one that says, keep moving. Growth doesn't come from perfect decisions. It comes from making honest ones. It comes from showing up, doing your best, and adjusting as you go. That's how real improvement works. Perfection is imaginary. Growth is measurable. One holds you back, the other moves you forward. Your brain will often try to convince you that perfection is the safest route. It believes that if everything looks right, sounds right, feels right, then you won't be judged, you won't fail, you won't regret. But what your brain sees as protection, your life experiences as delay. And every time you choose to wait for perfect, you lose time, energy, and momentum. Growth asks you to start messy, to move even when the path isn't clear. To accept that not everything will be smooth. And that's okay. Growth clears throat as honest. It's real. It's full of friction, effort, and decisions that don't always feel clean. That's why it works. It's built on movement, not approval. It's easy to get caught up in perfect outcomes, to measure your worth by how impressive the result looks. But the truth is, what matters most is the process. Are you learning? Are you improving? Are you becoming more focused, more aware, more disciplined? Those questions matter more than whether everything looks polished from the outside. When your brain wants perfect, it's usually afraid. Afraid of being seen, afraid of being judged, afraid of falling short. But growth requires facing those fears, not avoiding them. Growth is saying, I'm going to take the step even if I stumble. It's trusting that effort over time builds something stronger than perfection ever could. You don't grow by avoiding mistakes. You grow by learning from them. You don't get better by avoiding feedback. You get better by listening, adjusting, and continuing. That's the power of choosing growth. It's not about proving you're already enough. It's about becoming more through experience. Think about any area of your life where you've grown. It didn't happen because you got everything right. It happened because you stayed in the process. You kept going. You were willing to be seen as a beginner. You were willing to try, fail, and improve. That's what shaped you. The perfection mindset can make you overly cautious. It can make you fear trying anything new unless you're sure you'll succeed. But growth requires risk. It requires getting out of your comfort zone. It requires taking action before the doubts are quiet because they might never be. But your progress doesn't depend on their silence. It depends on your willingness to move through them. You have to get comfortable with being unfinished, with being in progress, with not having all the answers right away. That's how you stay adaptable. That's how you build resilience. Perfection, on the other hand, is rigid. It resists feedback. It avoids challenge. It fears being wrong. But growth invites correction. It welcomes change. It values humility. You won't grow if you're only willing to act when everything is certain. You'll only grow when you're willing to step forward, evaluate honestly, and try again. There's nothing wrong with wanting to do things well. But there's a difference between doing your best and needing it to be flawless. One is rooted in effort. The other is rooted in fear. You must be willing to accept that your first attempt may not be great. It may be awkward. It may be unclear. It may even fail. But from that you learn, and through that you grow. That's the process. That's how progress is made. You won't know what needs to be improved until you do something to improve. When your brain demands perfection, it's chasing control. But control is not the goal. Progress is. Control feels safe, but progress makes you strong. Strength comes from showing up even when things are uncertain. Confidence comes from building competence, and competence only comes from repetition and refinement. The longer you chase perfection, the longer you delay mastery. Perfection keeps you stuck in the planning stage. Growth brings you into motion. It moves you from idea to action, from intention to execution. It teaches you things you could never learn just by thinking or planning or preparing. Ask yourself right now, where are you trying to be perfect instead of making progress? Is it in your health, your relationships, your work, your habits, your goal? Are you rewriting the same plan over and over again, trying to make it flawless before you begin? Are you hesitating because the first version might not be impressive? What if you chose differently? What if you let the need for perfect take a backseat? What if you let yourself build something real? Even if it starts off small or shaky or uncertain, you'd move faster. You'd learn quicker. You'd stop judging your move and start learning from every experience. You'd gain energy from action instead of exhaustion from overthinking. Perfection will always have you waiting. Growth will always have you moving. Choosing growth doesn't mean lowering your standards. It means raising your standards for what truly matters. It means measuring your success not by how flawless it looks, but by how much you've improved. It means focusing on being honest, present, and consistent, not just polished. You can change your life when you stop needing perfect answers and start asking better questions. What can I do today to move forward? What's the next step I've been avoiding? Where can I improve? By taking action, not just by thinking about it. This is how you become someone who grows. Not someday. Not when you feel ready. Not when the timing is ideal. Now, with what you have, where you are, who you are, because growth doesn't come from what you know. It comes from what you apply. It comes from what you practice. It comes from what you're willing to learn through doing. Perfection waits. Growth moves. The difference between a stuck life and a progressing one often comes down to which voice you listen to. So the next time your mind tells you it's not good enough yet, pause and ask yourself, what would choosing growth look like right now? Then do that and keep doing it. That's how progress is made. That's how change becomes real. That's how you grow. Chapter 5. Get better by doing, not by planning. There comes a point where thinking stops helping and action starts changing everything. You can read all the right books, listen to all the inspiring talks, and write down your goals again and again. But none of that will change your life until you start doing the work. Most people get stuck in the loop of preparation. They're constantly organizing, planning, tweaking, perfecting, but not executing. And then they wonder why nothing ever moves. It's not because they don't know enough. It's because they haven't done enough. You don't learn to swim by reading about it. You learn by getting in the water. You don't get stronger by writing down your workout routine. You get stronger by picking up the weight. It's the same with everything else. Progress happens in the doing, not in the thinking about doing. Planning feels productive, and in some ways it is. But planning alone can easily become a way of avoiding fear. When you plan, you feel safe. You're in control. There's no risk. But the moment you step into action, things change. That's where the doubt shows up. That's where things get messy. And that's where growth happens. You get better when you try something and adjust. When you take real steps and learn from the outcome. That's the difference between people who stay stuck and people who build momentum. The ones who grow are the ones who test, fail, learn, and repeat. They don't just wait for the perfect idea. They test an imperfect one, see what works, and keep going. The real problem with endless planning is that it gives you the illusion of progress. You feel like you're doing something, but you're just circling around the same place. You stay in your head instead of stepping into your life. And over time, you lose energy. You lose clarity. You lose trust in yourself because deep down you know you're not really moving. Doing isn't glamorous at first. It's clumsy. It's uncertain. It rarely looks like the plan. But that's where the truth lives. That's where you discover what actually works for you. When you act, you get feedback from the real world. You see what needs fixing. You learn what matters most. You stop guessing and start growing. No amount of research will replace the lessons you learn from real experience. No checklist will ever prepare you for everything that might happen. But action builds a kind of confidence that no amount of planning ever will. You earn belief in yourself when you show up and take the next step. Especially when it's uncomfortable. It's okay to start before you feel ready. In fact, that's when most people begin, when the fear is still there, when the plan is still messy, when the outcome is still unknown. But they move anyway, and by doing that, they unlock a kind of clarity that only shows up after you act. When you take the first step, even if it's not perfect, you give yourself something real to work with. You can only improve what exists. You can't improve an idea that never gets out of your notebook. You can't refine a skill you've never practiced. You can't build a habit you only talk about. It has to live in your actions. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to do one small thing. Action leads to insight. Insight leads to progress, and progress builds momentum. That's the cycle, and it starts by doing something today, no matter how small. If you want to grow in any area of your life, your health, your relationships, your career, your mindset, start doing instead of endlessly preparing. Take the risk of getting it wrong. Take the step that feels too early. You'll learn faster, build resilience, and unlock your next move more quickly than you ever could by waiting for perfect timing. Ask yourself right now, what's one thing you've been planning for weeks, months, maybe even years, but haven't actually done? What's stopping you? Is it really lack of knowledge, or is it fear of messing up? Because here's the truth. You will mess up. Everyone does. That's part of it. But every time you do, you grow. You gain experience. You build muscle, mental, emotional, even physical. And before long, the thing that once scared you becomes second nature. Don't be the person who knows everything and does nothing. Be the person who starts with what they have, learns through doing, and gets better with each step. That person becomes unstoppable. You don't need more information. You need more implementation. You don't need more plans. You need more proof. And the only way to get it is by acting. Even if your first attempt fails, it's still a step forward. Even if it's messy, it still teaches you something. Even if nobody sees it, it still counts because you're building something real. You're creating evidence of your commitment, and that evidence starts compounding. Planning is safe. Doing is risky. But doing is where your growth lives. You don't become who you're meant to be by preparing forever. You become it by moving, by deciding, by acting. So stop overthinking. Stop waiting. Pick the first step and take it today. Not because it's the perfect time, but because it's real time. And real time is where change actually begins. Your growth isn't hiding in another plan. It's waiting in your next action. Take it. Keep going. That's how you get better. Chapter 6. Finish things even when they feel rough. Most people don't have trouble starting. The real struggle is finishing. Especially when things feel messy. When it's not going the way you imagined. When the outcome doesn't look or feel how you hoped. That's where the resistance shows up strongest, right in the middle. When the excitement wears off and the imperfections become obvious. That's when most people give up. Not because they can't finish, but because it doesn't feel good to keep going. It feels uncomfortable, disappointing, frustrating. But if you want to grow, if you want to build something real, you have to finish things even when they feel rough. Finishing is not about achieving perfection. It's about honoring the process. It's about choosing discipline over feelings. When you build the habit of completion, you build something far more valuable than a perfect result. You build self-trust. Every time you finish what you start, even when it's not denial, you prove to yourself that you follow through, that your effort matters more than your mood, that your commitment isn't conditional on convenience. In a world full of distractions and instant gratification, seeing something through to the end is rare, and that's exactly why it matters. Most people stop when things get hard. Most people quit when they lose momentum. Most people move on when the pressure rises, but growth comes from pushing through those moments, not avoiding them. It's in the finishing that you learn the most about the process, about the work, about yourself. It's easy to stay busy with things that never get completed. To jump from one idea to the next. Always starting, always planning, but never closing the loop. That might feel productive in the short term, but over time it drains your focus, weakens your confidence, and leaves you surrounded by half-finished efforts. You can't build a strong foundation on unfinished work. You have to see things through. You have to finish even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's not your best. Even when your brain tells you it's not worth it. Because what you're really building isn't just the task in front of you. You're building the identity of someone who finishes, someone who respects their own word, someone who doesn't leave everything halfway. That identity will carry you far beyond the short-term wins. It will show up in your work, your habits, your relationships, your goals. And it starts with the simple daily decision to complete what you begin. It doesn't mean everything has to be done perfectly. Sometimes finishing means closing the chapter, wrapping it up, learning the lesson, and letting go. Sometimes it means doing your best with what you have, accepting that it's not ideal, but it's done. Done means progress. Done means growth. Done means space for what's next. When you stop expecting everything to feel smooth, you give yourself permission to keep going when it gets messy, because it will. The middle is always messy. That's normal, but it's not a reason to stop. It's a reason to keep going. That's the work that matters. Showing up when the spark is gone. When the energy dips, when the doubts creep in, that's where your future is shaped. It's not about how inspired you feel. It's about what you choose to do when the inspiration is gone. Can you keep writing the page when it's not flowing? Can you keep showing up when you're tired of trying? Can you close the project when it's dragging and your mind wants to escape? That's the test. And when you pass it even once, you gain strength that stays with you. Every time you finish something, even if it's not your best, you build momentum. And that momentum becomes the fuel for the next step. People think they need motivation to finish. But what they really need is the habit of finish. A mindset that says, I will complete this because I said I would. That's where pride comes from. Not the kind that depends on praise. The kind that comes from knowing you're reliable, even to yourself. You don't need every project to be a masterpiece. You need the habit of completion. That's what will separate you from the crowd. That's what builds the muscles of consistency. People who finish rough work grow faster than those who never complete anything, because they're always waiting for perfection. The rough version teaches you more than the perfect draft you never publish. Let go of the need for it to be flawless. Instead, ask yourself, what will I learn by finishing this? That question will keep you grounded. It shifts your focus from performance to growth. And growth always beats perfection in the long run. You can't improve what you don't complete. You can't learn from what you don't finish. You need to go through the whole process, including the frustrating parts, to get the real reward. Sometimes finishing means accepting imperfection. Sometimes it means releasing your work even when you're still unsure. Sometimes it means ignoring the voice that says it's not ready and doing it anyway. That's where the breakthrough lives, in choosing completion over control. You don't get better by quitting every time things get uncomfortable. You get better by staying with it. By finishing the rough draft. By doing the final rep. By having the hard conversation. By sticking with the plan when your mind wants to rewrite it again. That's the kind of discipline that builds a life you're proud of. If you look at people who create real impact, you'll see a pattern. They finish. Even when it's slow. Even when it's hard. Even when they don't feel like it. That's not talent. That's commitment. And it's a choice you get to make every day. You won't always love the process. You won't always feel excited, but you can feel proud. You can finish what you start. And you can carry that mindset into every part of your life. So, next time you're in the middle of something and it feels rough, don't walk away. Don't tell yourself it doesn't matter. Don't say I'll come back to it later when you know you won't. Choose to see it through. Even if it's not perfect, even if it's not pretty, even if it takes longer than you thought, finish the thing. Because every time you do, you get better. Every time you do, you level up. Every time you do, you step into the kind of person who makes real progress. The kind of person who keeps going when it's hard, who values their effort, and who honors their goals. That's who you're becoming, and it starts with the next thing you finish, even if it feels rough, especially if it feels rough, because that's the work that matters most. Chapter 7. Repeat simple actions to build real change. Change is not something that happens all at once. It's not created in a single decision, one big move, or a breakthrough moment. Real change, the kind that sticks, comes from doing simple things over and over again. It comes from small steps consistently repeated even when they feel too easy to matter. Most people underestimate this. They believe change requires something dramatic, something extreme. But the truth is the results you want are built quietly in repetition, in routine, in the things that feel boring but build power. What creates progress is not how complex your strategy is, but how often you follow through on the basics. Doing the work once doesn't change your life. Doing it again and again is what transforms you. It's not the one workout that makes you healthy. It's moving your body every day. It's not the one productive day that makes you successful. It's showing up consistently when no one's watching. It's not the one honest conversation that strengthens a relationship. It's the choice to keep communicating with respect and patience every day. There's something about repetition that rewires how you see yourself. It shifts your identity from someone who tries to someone who does. It builds a track record you can rely on. Every time you follow through, even in a small way, you show yourself what kind of person you are. That builds confidence, not the kind that comes from talk, but the kind that comes from evidence. Big goals are only reached through small steps. And if those steps aren't repeated, nothing happens. People give up too soon because they can't see results fast enough. But change doesn't always show up right away. Most of the time it's happening under the surface in your thoughts, in your mindset, in your ability to stay disciplined. Just because you don't see progress yet doesn't mean it's not working. Every day you repeat the right action, you're laying a foundation. You're becoming stronger, even if it doesn't feel that way. The problem is we often chase variety when what we really need is consistency. We look for the new method, the latest tactic, the next big idea. But what actually works is doing the basics really well over and over until they become part of who you are. There's nothing fancy about it, but there's power in it. Repeating simple actions might not look impressive, but it's the most reliable way to create lasting results. It's easy to get bored with repetition. Your mind will try to convince you that you need to switch things up, try something different, start over, but that's often just distraction in disguise. The truth is, the people who get the furthest are the ones who can stay committed to simple actions long enough to let them work. They're not smarter. They're not luckier. They just stay in the game longer. Success in any area of life is built through patience and pattern. You don't need a new system. You need a better relationship with repetition. You need to respect the process of doing small things daily, knowing they lead to big outcomes later. You don't need to see massive results right away. You just need to keep showing up. When you feel stuck, overwhelmed, or discouraged, return to the basics. Drink the water, get the sleep, write the words, send the message, read the page, take the walk, speak the truth. These are not glamorous things, but they move your life forward when repeated over time. These are the quiet actions that build momentum. It's not about being perfect with your routines. It's about not quitting when they feel slow. Missing one day won't break you. But stopping completely is what keeps you starting over again and again. If you keep restarting, it means you haven't built the habit of staying. And staying is what creates change. Repetition trains your brain to trust yourself. Every time you do the thing you said you would, even if it's small, you rebuild your credibility. You learn that your actions aren't controlled by your emotions. You don't wait for motivation. You do the thing because you decided it matters. That's the kind of person who changes. You don't need to figure everything out at once. You just need to keep doing what you know works. Even when it's boring, even when it's not exciting, even when no one is clapping. This is where the real progress happens. Not in the loud moments, but in the quiet ones where you repeat what matters. People who change their lives don't always have more talent. They have more tolerance for repetition. They're willing to do the same simple thing until it works. That's the mindset that builds mastery. Not a constant search for novelty, but a daily choice to show up and do what works. You're not going to feel proud of every small action in the moment. Some days it won't feel like enough. Some days you'll question whether it matters, but the truth is it all matters. Repetition is what compounds. It's what grows. It's what transforms. And the longer you stay with it, the clearer the results become. Think about the progress you could make if you stopped trying to do more and just repeated what already worked. If you stopped chasing new ideas and started building on the ones you already have. If you committed to simple habits that match your goals and stuck with them every single day. Don't underestimate what can happen when you focus less on intensity and more on consistency. That's how you win in the long run. Not with bursts of effort, but with a steady rhythm of action. Your future isn't built in a day. It's built in the pattern of what you do daily. And if that pattern is full of small, intentional, repeated actions, then you're building something powerful, even if it doesn't look like it yet. Keep doing the work. Keep repeating what moves you forward. Keep trusting the process. That's how real change happens. Quietly, steadily, one simple action at a time, repeated until the results become impossible to ignore. Chapter 8. Learn through movement, not through waiting longer. There is a point where thinking more no longer helps. You already know what you need to do. You've already read the advice, watched the videos, taken the notes, and imagined what the result might feel like. But none of that gives you experience. None of that brings you closer to where you want to be. You don't grow just by waiting. You grow by doing. You don't figure life out by standing still. You figure it out while moving through it. The mind will often try to convince you that you're not ready. It will tell you to wait just a little longer, to plan a little more, to gather more courage, more confidence, more information. But that delay is rarely about preparation. It's hesitation. And hesitation builds nothing. The only way to learn is to start doing the thing. Not later, but now. Not once it's perfect, but while it's messy and unclear and real. You cannot think your way into progress. You must move into it. Movement gives you feedback. It reveals what works and what doesn't. It teaches you things thinking can't. When you act, you feel the friction. You see the roadblocks. You understand what needs adjusting. That is learning. And it only happens in motion. People often believe they need more time to figure it out, more time to feel ready. But what they really need is movement. Time doesn't bring clarity if you don't act. Days, weeks, and months can pass. And nothing will change if you're still sitting in the same place, thinking the same thoughts, waiting for the perfect signal to begin. Every important skill you've ever developed, you learned through doing. You didn't wait until you were an expert to take your first step. You learned how to walk by falling. You learned how to speak by trying. You learned how to grow by living. That hasn't changed. The same truth applies now. Learning doesn't happen in the distance between now and when you feel ready. It happens in the decision to begin and to keep going. Movement brings clarity. You might not know what the full path looks like, but taking one step reveals the next. You don't need to see the whole staircase. You only need to take the first step, then take another. That's how you discover the direction that matters. Not by overthinking, but by showing up and doing what you can with what you have. It's uncomfortable to move when you're unsure. That's exactly why most people avoid it. They want guarantees. They want certainty. But growth doesn't work that way. If you want to grow, you have to let go of waiting for the perfect conditions. They're not coming. You create the right conditions by moving forward, learning, adjusting, and staying in motion. You don't need to feel fearless. You need to feel committed. You need to stop asking for permission from your fear and start trusting your own effort. Even if your steps are small, even if you feel clumsy, they're still steps. They still count and they're still building something. Every new skill begins with discomfort. You will feel awkward. You might feel slow, but that's not a sign you're failing. It's proof you're growing. It means you've stepped outside the mental loop of waiting and you've entered the world of action. That's where everything changes. You can spend years studying how to do something and never gain the understanding one day of action would give you. It's not about having all the answers. It's about being willing to start, to try and to learn from what happens. That's where mastery begins. Not in waiting, but in working. Not in perfect knowledge, but in persistent movement. The mind can be a powerful ally or a relentless obstacle. It can keep you stuck, questioning everything, convincing you to wait, holding you back with what ifs and doubts. Or you can decide to act anyway. You can override the fear with forward motion. You can take one step even when you don't have 10 lined up after it. Because the person who moves learns more in one day than the person who waits learns in 1 month. When you wait, your doubts grow louder. When you move, your doubts lose power. The more you move, the more you realize they were only thoughts, not truths. And when you see that, you gain momentum. You stop asking if you're good enough. And you start proving that you're becoming better. Movement is progress. Movement is confidence. Movement is change. You cannot become the person you want to be by staying still. That version of you is built through daily action, clears throat through doing the hard thing, through showing up, through facing discomfort, making mistakes, learning from them, and trying again. There is no perfect time. There is only now, and what you do with now determines what comes next. Every delay adds more resistance. Every excuse strengthens hesitation, but every step forward, no matter how small, breaks that cycle. You don't need permission. You don't need the stars to align. You need to move. That's it. Start before you're ready. Learn on the go. Adjust as you learn. Let the experience teach you what preparation never could. No one learns how to lead without leading. No one becomes strong by thinking about strength. No one builds a new life by planning it endlessly on paper. At some point, you have to step into the work. You have to take a risk. You have to act, not just once, but again and again. This is how you grow. Not by waiting longer, but by moving sooner. By doing the thing. By becoming someone who doesn't hide from the process, someone who steps into the unknown and learns through experience. You are not stuck. You are not broken. You are not too far behind. You are just one decision away from movement. And movement is what will take you from where you are to where you want to be. You already have what you need to begin. Now is the time to use it. Keep moving. That's where your answers live. Chapter 9. Track how far, not how fast you go. Progress means something different to everyone, but there's one thing that's true for all of us. If you only measure how fast you're going, you'll eventually burn out or give up. Real growth doesn't happen by rushing. It happens by staying. It happens by showing up again and again, even when things move slowly. That's why you have to learn to track how far you've come instead of how fast you think you should be moving. It's easy to get discouraged when it feels like others are ahead of you. You see someone making huge leaps while you're still taking small steps and you start to question your pace. But comparison steals your focus. It takes your eyes off your own path and puts them on someone else's timeline. You're not here to beat anyone. You're here to build yourself. And building something meaningful takes time. What matters most is that you're moving forward, not how fast you're getting there. When you start to value distance covered over speed, everything changes. You begin to appreciate your effort. You start recognizing the improvements that used to go unnoticed. You stop chasing quick results and start trusting the work you're doing, even if it's slower than you'd like. Fast doesn't always mean strong. Quick wins can disappear just as quickly. But when you build slowly with intention and honesty, you build something solid. Something that can hold up under pressure. That kind of progress sticks with you. That kind of progress can't be taken away. You don't grow by rushing through life. You grow by staying consistent with your effort and staying aware of your progress. It's the small wins that build momentum. It's the quiet improvements that change how you think, how you act, how you show up. But if you're only looking at the clock, you'll miss them. Ask yourself this. How much closer are you now than you were 6 months ago? Not how fast, but how far. How many things have you overcome that you once thought would break you? How many habits have you shifted that once felt impossible? How many times have you chosen discipline when your mind told you to quit? Those are the things that matter. When you track your distance, you give yourself credit. You acknowledge that you've put in the effort. You begin to notice progress you were blind to before. That's powerful because motivation fades. But self-awareness fuels resilience, and resilience is what carries you through the seasons when progress feels invisible. Speed is seductive. It makes you believe that quick success is the only kind of success. But rushing leads to shortcuts, and shortcuts often skip the parts of the process that actually shape you. The parts that teach you how to handle pressure, how to stay focused, how to stay calm when things go wrong. Going fast might get you attention, but going far that earns you respect, especially your own. You respect yourself when you see that you've stayed with it. You've kept going when others quit. You've improved while others complained. You've moved forward when no one was watching. You don't need to chase pace. You need to stay on your path. Stay grounded in your purpose. Keep track of your effort, your consistency, your follow-through. Those are the real signs of progress. Not the numbers on a timeline, but the strength you've built behind the scenes. It's okay to move slowly. It's okay to take breaks. It's okay to pause and reset. What matters is that you return, that you keep going, that you honor your effort by tracking how far you've come, not how quickly you got there. Some people move fast but burn out because they never took the time to build the mindset required to keep going. You don't want to be fast and fragile. You want to be steady and solid. You want to be someone who lasts, someone who doesn't give up when things slow down. When you look back and realize how far you've come, it changes how you walk forward. You stop needing validation. You stop needing things to move quickly. You stop trying to rush your way into results. You begin to trust the journey you're on. That trust is everything. When you trust your progress, you're not shaken by delay. You're not discouraged by slow days. You're not thrown off by detours. You know that progress isn't about speed. It's about movement in the right direction, no matter how long it takes. You build a better life not by racing through it, but by staying in it, present, patient, and persistent. So, start paying attention to how far you've come. Notice the days you almost quit, but didn't. Remember the moments when you kept your word to yourself. Celebrate the habits that are now part of your daily life. Track the changes in how you think, how you react, how you led yourself. Don't wait for someone else to notice. Don't wait for a big finish line. You are your own proof. You know what you've been through. You know what you've conquered. You know how far you've walked. That deserves respect. You won't always see dramatic results. You won't always get applause. But every day you stay in the process, you are building something unshakable, something grounded, something real. So stop asking, why am I not there yet? Start asking, how far have I come from where I started? And then keep going, keep walking, keep building. Because your pace doesn't define you, your progress. Chapter 10. Stay consistent when perfect thoughts show up. There will be days when you feel the pressure to get everything right. When your mind tells you that if it's not perfect, it doesn't count. That voice that whispers, you could do this better, so maybe don't do it at all. Those are the days that test your consistency. Those are the moments that separate people who keep moving from people who get stuck in their heads. The people who grow are not the ones who wait until everything feels just right. They're the ones who keep showing up even when the thoughts of being perfect try to slow them down. That perfect thought doesn't always scream. Sometimes it sneaks in. It says, wait a bit longer so you can do this properly. Or you're not ready yet. So, don't post that, don't share that, don't finish that. It sounds responsible, it sounds wise, but it's not truth. It's fear. It's fear wearing a polished mask. And if you're not careful, that kind of thinking will convince you to stop taking action. But the only thing that actually creates change is consistency. Not perfect days, not perfect decisions, just consistent steps done over time. When those thoughts show up, you have to know how to meet them, not with more thinking, but with doing. You remind yourself that action wins over opinion. You remind yourself that staying consistent matters more than waiting for things to feel right. Because when you look back in 6 months, it won't be the perfect days that changed your life. It will be the ordinary ones, the ones when you stayed in motion. Despite the discomfort, despite the doubts, despite the temptation to do nothing, people don't fail because they're not talented. They fail because they let the perfect standard paralyze them. They want every word to sound smart, every move to be flawless, every moment to be inspiring. But real life isn't like that. Real life rewards those who stay steady, who keep doing what matters, who aren't afraid to look imperfect while they grow. When your brain demands perfect, remind yourself why you started. You didn't begin this journey to impress anyone. You didn't commit to change because it was easy. You began because something inside you wanted to be more. That reason is more important than the voice that says you should pause until you get everything exactly right. You don't need to silence the voice of perfection. You just need to act anyway. Let it speak and move forward without its approval. Consistency is what builds results. It's what creates trust in yourself. Every time you follow through, even with small actions, you prove to yourself that you can rely on your own word. That's how confidence grows, not by being flawless, but by being faithful to the process. When you stick with something despite the noise in your head, you're building something far more valuable than any polished outcome. You're building resilience. You don't have to feel strong to be consistent. You just have to decide that you're going to honor the process more than the pressure, because perfection will always be a moving target. Every time you reach for it, it shifts. But consistency is solid. You can measure it. You can feel it. You can depend on it. It's not about how polished your effort looks. It's about whether or not you showed up. That's what matters when you're building something real. When you look back on the journey, you won't remember how flawless your execution was. You'll remember that you kept showing up when it was hard. You'll remember that you kept going even when no one saw it. You'll remember that you didn't quit just because it wasn't perfect. The truth is, no real progress ever feels perfect while it's happening. It feels raw. It feels messy. It feels uncertain. But if you show up long enough, you begin to notice something. The voice that demanded perfection gets quieter and the evidence of your effort gets louder. The results start to speak. The habits take root. The actions compound. But that only happens if you keep moving. Don't let perfect thinking rob you of progress. Don't let your need to get it right stop you from getting it done. The goal isn't to feel proud every time. The goal is to be consistent even when you don't. Because the person who stays consistent builds something the perfectionist never will. A body of work, a history of effort, a real sense of identity built on action, not image. You might not always feel motivated. You might not always see instant result, but you can always decide to stay in the game. To do the workout even when it feels weak. To show up to the job even when it's not exciting. To write the words even when they don't flow easily. That's what creates strength over time. Not inspiration, but intention. Perfect thoughts are distractions. They sound like high standards, but they often hide the fear of being judged, of being seen as not good enough. But you don't overcome fear by thinking through it. You overcome it by acting through it, by reminding yourself that real change is built in the uncomfortable moments, not in the planned ones. The people who finish things are rarely the most gifted. They're the ones who got used to pushing forward through the noise. They made peace with being imperfect. They knew they wouldn't always get it right. But they also knew that getting it done mattered more. And over time, that consistency gave them more growth than perfection ever could. You don't need to wait for the perfect version of yourself to arrive. You become that version by showing up today and then again tomorrow and again the next day. You're not defined by how clean your work looks. You're defined by how often you do the work that matters, even when you don't feel like it. This is where progress becomes possible. Not in the dramatic moments, but in the quiet ones. The mornings when you show up early. The evenings when you finish what you started. The weekends when you don't feel like it, but you do it anyway. That's how consistency beats perfection. It builds over time. It shapes who you are without asking for permission. And it does something perfection never could. It takes you somewhere new. The thoughts will come. The pressure will rise. Your brain will tell you it has to be better, sharper, smoother, more impressive. Let those thoughts pass. Let them say what they want. You're not here for You're here for progress. You're here for growth. You're here to become someone who finishes what they start. Keep going. Stay steady. Trust the steps you're taking. And when that perfect voice shows up again, and it will remind yourself what matters most, not the performance, not the polish, not the praise, just the next consistent step. That's where the real power is. That's where your future is being built. One honest action at a